Grace, good morning. This is Coach T, and we have got a recap video, very brief this time, for Decision 2 for Diamond Universe, which was made on October 5th of 2024. Now, this is an amazing video. What you're going to see a lot of jump cuts because I'm going to jump between resources to show you pieces and edit out those. So there'll be some quick flip transitions here, so you don't have to waste a lot of time watching me move between the resources. So forgive me for that. But without further ado, we will jump right into that. The headline before we get started is that Yellow had one of the biggest turnarounds we've ever seen, a turnaround within a turnaround. They were dead last time with one of the worst scores possible. 18 is the worst you can get. Six indicators, the big six, ARE, ROS, share price, employee morale, emissions, all that stuff. 6 times 3 would be 18. They had 16. The best possible would be to be number one in all six, have a score of 6, and they have a score of 6. They jump from 18 to 6. So this is a perfect case study for the other teams, especially right now when you're going into your merger papers. Pretend you all want to merge with Yellow. Actually, you don't have to. You don't have to merge with another team in our universe, nor you can even pick, a fictitious team and talk about their financials. The idea is how do mergers work and what's the strategy. But anyway, it is an amazing turnaround because you can look at what happened in all 4 lines for all three teams in this universe, and you can see that image was awesome for everyone last time, and blue remained stable, but red dropped down, got cut in half, and yellow got dropped a little bit because they built some inventory and had some lost orders. But that's the only, but it's still positive EBIT. They stood good grade and did great in terms of EBIT this and last time. Although they dropped a little, the real turnaround is in family, where they were underwater, hugely underwater, not just a little. That's what brought their score the lowest. And now they're hugely above water in EBIT. So if you focus on family and look at some of the positions of the lines and what happened here, you'll see why red and yellow switch places. Now, I'm not trying to discount blue because red and blue again were tied at 15 points, which isn't terrible. But they picked the sim picked red as number 2 and blue as number 3 because of accumulated retained earnings and some of those factors. Without further ado, I'm going to share. We're going to start jumping around. Well, I'm getting dizzy. It got moved from right to left there all of a sudden. So here is the industry totals in terms of this last decision too. And you can see that yellow just blew out the top of revenues, did great in EBIT, stayed positive. Red did some investing. We'll have to see the line where they actually dropped down in their return on capital employed. Let's see, where's Rose? Yeah, here we go. Dropped down to 9. And yellow is positive, almost 5% positive, which is amazing compared to last time. But you can see the different lines here and what actually happened. Last time, you won't remember, but you can compare this to last time. Last time, yellow was negative here. Now they're a little bit positive, and red was a little positive, is now is a little negative. Blue is almost the same, a little less, a little more negative, and this is EBIT, of course. Now red, here's where you had the switcheroo, was in family. A lot of times you do well at the expense of the competitor, and that's exactly what happened here. Red dropped down. We'll look at lost orders over inventory as a primary indicator of what happened with EBIT with red versus yellow. And this is completely reversed from last time. The first decision, red was way up here and yellow was way down here. And blue was probably about in the middle here. So blue has kind of cratered here. Everybody craters in eco to start because it's a later line. And blue really dropped in eco, meaning there was the sliders in eco weren't even attempted to become close. So we'll take a look at that in terms of ideal sliders compared to where they set, especially in image, because images, we're coming up on decision 3 and we're getting close to our last time that image can be a cow, depending on the gas prices. We got to check the gas prices, but um, yellow still did real well and blue did much better in image. So we can learn lessons from both blue and yellow in terms of how do you handle the image line. And especially this family is amazing because this blue and red um, really should have made a lot of money on families. So matching supply and demand there was a real issue. Also cost control and engineering effectiveness, which is the slider choices, which we'll take a quick look at. But again, yellow was a little lower, but not that bad an image. And obviously when you add that to family, they really did some great things on the numbers. Okay, here's a quick summary of low cost. The financials, and you can look at these in detail on the site. I've more visuals for this decision probably than ever before. There might be 40 some visuals on the Biz 485 site, so you can really look at them before decision 3. But you can see right away that you can almost guess when you look at blue here what happened in terms of EBIT with a lower price and attempting to get more more return, and yet marketing appeal is way high. You're looking at maybe 130 as a max here, so almost 200%. There's a huge waste in low cost of marketing dollars, which it didn't destroy their EBIT, but it didn't help it become positive. And then you can look at the sales over demand percent and kind of see how close to the demand did we come with sales, and then LOI we'll look at in the other visuals in a minute. This is the story in revenue. We'll also look at a chart on that. And red, here's the huge plummet for EBIT, or blue rather. The huge plummet for blue was in low cost, right? Yeah, this is low cost. Let me see. Yeah, blue had a big drop compared to the other. Now in family, similar situation, but this is where we really want to look what happened. What did yellow do? For one thing, look at the price compared to red. And this switch price this much higher than market is absolutely guaranteeing a disaster in terms of being too far from competition and choice, because price doesn't drive all of image, but it drives a lot of family. And of course, low costs, it drives a lot. Eco, you can get away with a little more price raising, but never, you know, 20 grand or 20,000 euros or whatever. So we can see kind of the etiology right in the beginning of what happened in family. Although, this yellow is not bad with, being above blue in price and yet grabbing huge market share, getting a huge amount of revenue. You'll see the LOI is almost flat in family. So they produced enough. They actually hit a good number. And when you look at the sliders there, it really tells a story in terms of what do we need for each of these lines, and which sliders need to be set where. This is the decision 3 that you're coming up to, where you really know what the white line means, because you can see which items of the past white lines, and we were supposed to, don't forget, you're supposed to screenshot those and look at the change and say, I can see which sliders here were doing well and which weren't. And I did a whole recap that's kind of separate on the website, where we looked at the lines and looked at, you know, all the perceptive and actual decision lines. So we've got comfort and we've got performance, we've got design, robustness, size, etc. And you can see the pattern developing that in image, where it's really important, design's important, performance is important, maybe eight importance, if not 9. Comfort is important too, but size is not, because you can have a small race car image car as well as a bigger one. It's not as important as it is in family because technology, of course, is really important in image. So these things for family versus image are two cash cows. The sliders are very important up through three, but then in four and five, you have to watch gas prices and the investment in low cost and eco pays off if you're in the right place on those. Speaking of in eco, we can see that everybody kind of tanked, but yellow tanked worse in not demand. Blue is the lowest because when you have a huge amount of demand, yet the sales demand, look at the sales demand here for blue. That's what absolutely killed blue. The lost orders over inventory, where you're either building a huge amount of inventory, you put a lot of money into marketing and you didn't make enough. So that's gonna, plunge your EBIT, and that's why they dropped so low compared to yellow, which is on the verge of potentially becoming positive. So yellow's really got to look at eco this next cycle around. Emissions looks good for everyone. Uh, Capacity evolution is important. What we're seeing is that blue didn't use the capacity formula. Now there's a whole capacity formula on Biz 485, and I did a video on it also in this last round, and also did a bunch of posts on it. So that's something blue should really take a close look at. Finally, numbers and image. Um, we've already talked about it a little bit, but let's take a look at capacity down here. 0 minus 6 minus 1. So you want to be around 0 minus 1 minus 6 means, again, that you've got to kind of look at your lost orders over inventory and see if your plant capacity is where it should be. And you can really match the market slider to that because you can see how is my marketing should be almost flat, but there's a couple lines where I won't say who team was, where they've left it flat at 4 the whole time. All the sliders and just said, let's not even deal with this line. If you're not going to deal with the line, you're not going to change the sliders, you're not going to try to follow the market, and you don't want to sell that line, you still have to pay your depreciation on your plant and keep it going. If you don't pay that minimum of whatever, 600,000 or whatever 600 is, um, you're going to have a huge problem, even if you're not trying to market and sell that particular line. Okay, here's LOI for our low cost line. You can look at this more carefully on Biz 45, but you can see the story here of red building inventory. This is where you had the split where the two went the other way on the position with red and yellow. Red is building a lot of inventory, meaning they didn't have the plant plant capacity. Yellow built capacity and did well in low cost, but they weren't able to get a little closer in terms of sales and marketing on low cost in order to keep the demand where the supply was. So when you're having lost orders, your capacity on that plant is not keeping up with sales aren't keeping up with orders. So basically you're getting the orders with your spend on marketing. And they did the opposite thing. We've got kind of plenty of spend building demand um, with yellow, but we have inventory being built here. So we're actually not selling it even though we could deliver it. So blue just took a total plunge down and went even further down into lost orders, meaning blue, as we saw in the financials, they're not doing a good enough job matching the plant capacity to their estimate of demand, especially in low cost. Now, low cost is not an easy line for anyone, even though yellow is a little positive now. They're kind of close to matching supply and demand. The trend is still down. So yellow's got to take a look at flattening it this way, which means the plant capacity needs to be, when you're losing orders and you're getting the orders but not getting the sales, it means you can't make them basically. Or if you're building inventory, you have to look at what is your production capacity compared to your orders. So the lost orders gap between what you can make and what you're being ordered mean you did real good on your marketing, but you got to continue to straighten the plant out a little bit in low cost to get flat there. Bang, and family. Similar story with yellow. They had a real problem building inventory, and look at this curve. This is one of the reasons they grew. They got almost zero on family. That's where they really shined. They did fantastic EBIT, and you can see how closely EBIT is tied to how close you are to maintaining supply and demand. It's very true in the real world and the sim. So red continues to build a huge amount of inventory, which is why they plunged way down in EBIT, and blue plunged down in EBIT, although did a little bit better in terms of plant capacity. But when you look at these lost orders for blue kind of going in the right direction, it's kind of like two different stories. It's like they got the orders, but they couldn't fulfill them down here. And here they built plant capacity, but they didn't get enough orders to stop building this inventory. This is building your inventory up here. And this again is family, which is a cash cow. This is where we're getting close to decision 3 and 4, where we're going to have to do better on eco and on low cost because some of the juice will be out of family. Now, as much as yellow and red both invested in family, it can keep up for a couple decisions because the market isn't just the sim, it's what you do with it. So as you invest in it, it stays a cash cow longer. So this investment will pay off. Voila, now we are in eco-friendly. And no one is expected to do fantastically in eco-friendly, but again, both red and yellow are kind of close to being in a straight line. Blue had a problem in eco, and you can see right away, if you look at red kind of was building some inventory, but got a little bit better. Yellow is really balanced between, although they're above, they're in the inventory line. Both of them have a little excess inventory here. But if you look at why did blue absolutely crash and burn in eco, this in EBIT, you can see this is exactly what happened. A huge number of lost orders um, because they were not able to fulfill all that demand that they had. And EBIT will drop if you invest a lot because with every sale that's underwater, that's decreasing your retained earnings. So great revenue doesn't help you if every sale is a loss. So you're like stepping on the gas and blowing the engine. So the capacity has to be built and the marketing has to be done, and then they have to match each other. And then all we have left is looking at image where everybody did fairly well. And here we are. The trend for yellow was already down, and they may not have realized, because remember last decision, they did almost twice as well in EBIT in image. There were our image leader, yellow and then red and then blue, and all three were in positive territory. This time red built so much inventory that they literally went from being highly prop number 2 in EBIT down to underwater in EBIT because they built all this inventory. Yellow did not do that great in terms of lost orders in image. They were still positive in EBIT because they invested well, but they still had a gap between sales and orders. They invested in orders and yet they couldn't deliver them because they needed to maintain the plant investment in image and didn't. Let's look at image here first, kind of as an interesting example of what we're doing with our sliders. This is one of our image matching exercises, and you can really see how this dispersion of design. Just look at the numbers here. Design up here, where the market is telling you they want it, and where this team actually is. And then if you look when you move into performance obviously is very, very important in image. And so our slider, our white is saying, yeah, being up there around 8 or 7, just look at white and then look back at the number and saying, what are they saying the market really wants? And you'll really know these answers. It's down here at 6 in comfort. And if we set it a little bit higher than, or a little bit lower, that's what, 5 or 7, we're still going to be within time, but we just have to understand that in image comfort is not as important as performance or technology. And let's see, let's look at technology. There we go. Yeah, technology, instead of dropping way down in something like size, because who cares? They're closer to four, right? Or consumption itself. That's, gas mileage and economy. This is something they don't care at all about an image. They want a fast race car, and if it's a gas guzzler, so be it. So that's what the customers want, and you have to match that, which this team did very, very well. Now you can see the market is trending that way, and both the perception we have of the market and the actual decisions are trending a little down. So this could be a problem next decision in terms of novelty. Novelty is always tough because novelty costs a lot in terms of CapEx. So it's saying, hey, can you spend a little more on novelty? No, we may not want to, whoever this team is. I'm not going to say. But anyway, oh, wait, it shows. I'm sorry. Anyway, Eco was really interesting since everybody was underwater. There was some mismatching of these sliders, and you can see over anticipating, under anticipating, under a little bit, and then uh, quite a bit under. So it's the thing about this is these are all in phase. If you look at some of the other teams in this universe, these are out of phase. This goes here, and this goes here, this goes here, then this goes here. The sine curves are kind of inverted. And that's just absolutely not guessing where this is going by not looking at the trend. Now, how do you look at it then? It's like picking stock and doing candlesticking. It's like, how did I know at this inflection point that that was going to start dropping? Well, you don't. You play the average and say, okay, maybe we'll pick this slider instead of picking six or four, maybe five is a good middle ground for it because that's kind of where it was and where it was training. So, I mean, you could literally take these slider numbers and run a regression of them across the bottom in Excel and see kind of what is your standard deviation and your mean because they are that predictable. You can never nail them exactly, but you can certainly, even if they're lagging indicators, you can get a good idea of where they're going because you're not going to see a step function. They're not going to drop down like that. Families are cash cow, and it's one of the most stable designs we have because we know their needs, and it's needs aren't radical in any because families are families. They want some size, and that's important, but they don't want nine in size. Cost is important too. So the pricing affects this more than anything else. So we saw some people overpricing in the market, especially in eco. So that's not on the slider price. That's in a budget, and you have to remember that that's all of these are about the same as price and influence because your margins are important in and also getting your unit cost down and spreading it over a larger installed base. That's really where you create the engine. But this gives a good idea of family in terms of how flat it generally is in terms of its needs on the sliders and gives you a good hint on what you need to do there if you're way off on your own sliders. Bam, there's low cost and similar thing happening here in terms of robustness where low cost, we know by now that low cost really wants something that doesn't take a lot of repair. They want the old Honda Fit that was $14,000, had a lot of features, had technology, and seemed to last forever. So that's really one of the features of low cost. And everything else stays calmly between four and six here, right? In terms of what they want. Let me look at it. Get the guy out of the way. Okay, yeah. See, this is four here, which is our average where we start out, and this is six. So there's not much more other than lack of repair that's important to them. And consumption, of course, back in eco was extremely much more important that when you do more here, you consume less. So it's like, I'm not doing more consumption, more higher numbers means less consumption, which is pollution. That's all it is. The Europeans call it consumption. It's actually pollution. You have less pollution than if you do more of that. So you're going to be in trouble if you drop this at 3 or 2, but obviously this is what the market wants in terms of that's of what we're selling. That's a bell for yellow. Without further ado, that's our recap this time, but you'll see all of those slides there, and try not to give anything away, but I've had two of the teams working really closely with me, the validators doing a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts, and I don't prefer anybody, in fact, but if you don't look at what I post about that in the DQs and the announcements, you will have a disadvantage because I am answering questions, giving tips, cheats, and hints, but I give them to everyone. If one team asks a really good question, I'll answer it and then I'll post it so that everyone can see it. But if you don't go look for the post, and sometimes I even send an email it to everyone. But if you don't check your emails, you may miss that also. So don't forget the Biz 45 site because it's got all of these graphics and many more, dozens more. I think there's almost 40 this time, so it's a record in terms of the amount of analytic power you have. And of course, there's a before decision 3 video you may want to watch, which will give you some hints and clues on what's coming up with decision 3. And don't sweat the merger paper. This is kind of your Easter egg if you watch this whole video. Thank you for watching, and here's your ending Easter egg. You do not have to do an individual paper on the merger. It's a team activity in CLC. It's been provisioned. It's ready for you. Go take a look at it. You can actually work together as a team on this. It's not a benchmark. So you can come up with a common presentation, a kind of common paper, and quote each other, and then submit it. And you will not get penalized for your similarity score in Lopes right because it actually is a team activity. It's not like some of the other papers you do where you're supposed to be doing independent research. So thank you so much for this round. We will see you Friday and in the forums and everywhere else for decision 3, which is coming up. Good luck to everyone. Everyone's doing fantastic, doing really good, validating on time, and really getting to know what the customer wants and what the market is doing. Don't forget gas prices in terms of what you're doing in image